Thank you, Mr. President. It's sure nice to be here with you this morning. Welcome. Welcome to your capital city. We want you to know that we have you embrace our city as we, as elected officials here in Little Rock, embrace our wonderful city on both sides of the river. So we hope you've had a good time so far. I want to tell you that I want to reach out, as Rick just mentioned, to City Director Joan Adcock. Joan is one of our longtime city directors, and she wants to make sure that you have a rock garden back at home to remind yourself of your wonderful capital city. And she was out there early this morning as you were having breakfast, making sure that you got one of our promotional items, the Little Rock. So thank you, Director Adcock. And also, I want to thank our Little Rock Fire Department, Color Guard, and Police Department for their presentation this morning. You know, we depend on our men and women in uniform so very, very often, and the tragic events of this past week only remind us of how important it is that we have people that run into the fire, they run into harm's way to try and save we as citizens in every community throughout the country. And so I'm particularly honored that we have loyal and dedicated police officers and firefighters, as you do, in all of our cities throughout this wonderful state. And I think we should give them a hand right now. Thank you. You know, I know we invest in those kinds of things. Public safety is first and foremost in our hearts and minds, but when you see the tragedies that occur with young people, and you see the tragedy that occurs on our streets, you have to wonder how those individuals grew up. What kind of an investment did a community or did a family make in those people as they were growing up? How did they receive a value system that in some way has failed them in terms of respecting human life? So I'd like to mention a couple things in terms of investment, not financial investment, but investment in our children and in their future, and some items and some things that I think can be beneficial to you. A couple of things that we do here in Little Rock, and you know, one of the great things of having a meeting like this or going to a national meeting is that you get to steal a bunch of other people's ideas. And I want you to do that. I want you to steal as many different ideas and take them back home and put them to work as you can. One of the things we did, and I'm really happy to talk to you about it for just a moment, is, you know, we typically deal with potholes and street paving and trash, water and sewer. You know, cities are continually reaching out now and doing more and different things to try and take care of our citizens, recognizing that county government doesn't do it necessarily, neither does state government, and most often, as we've seen in the last few years, the federal government's not doing it. So increasingly, that burden is being placed on our shoulders as local officials. One of the things we've done is, while we don't run our schools, we are not we don't have any responsibility for our schools, as you don't. We have decided to get involved in the schools in a variety of ways. And one of the programs that we have taken to many of our elementary schools is a program called Love Your School. It's an issue that I thought we needed to address a few years ago, dealing with the issues of childhood obesity. It is truly an epidemic. And so the question is, what can a city do about that? We can certainly be a cheerleader. We can urge people to use our parks. We can have marathons, and we can build walking trails and bicycle trails. But what else can we do? How can we get into a regular situation where we get into the minds of young people to try and educate them about healthy eating, healthy nutrition, where produce and vegetables and fruit come from? Many of our kids don't know those things, sadly enough. So we began a program about 3 or 4 years ago called Love Your School. And we have volunteers. We work with our high schools. We work with our colleges. We work with our wonderful AmeriCorps program, where we take and we bring kids into 9 elementary schools, and they teach nutrition classes. We work with the schools. We get an opportunity to take some of that educational time and actually teach from kindergarten through the 5th grade in our elementary schools. We actually teach nutrition classes. And then they go in, and we have built gardens in each one of these elementary schools, and each class has a garden they're responsible for. So they learn many, many things. They learn about science, they learn about math, they learn about English, they learn about proper nutrition by educating them about what is healthy and what is not healthy. And then ultimately in the afternoons and after work and in the evenings, we have a program called Cooking Matters, where we educate the adults, the parents and caregivers of these children on what is proper preparation in terms of eating. It's that type of an investment that I think helps in many, many different ways as it relates to our children and how to help them on a very, very epidemic type of a problem. The other investment I'd like to talk about for you is one that is equally important, but it deals with the other end of the spectrum. It deals with our seniors. People that are retired on limited incomes, live in fragile neighborhoods oftentimes. We have begun a program, a Love Your Senior program, where we have gone in, again, using the wonderful services of AmeriCorps. And if you are not using any AmeriCorps students, I encourage you to get educated about that program through the Department of Human Services. The state provides for an opportunity for you to put in applications where you get young people between the ages of 18 and 24 who come in for a year or 2 years and dedicate themselves to volunteerism. They get paid a stipend, and all you've got to do is find a place for them to lay their head. We had AmeriCorps students come in and weatherize homes for our seniors. Very interesting and a revealing issue, I might add. Over the course of 6 weeks, a group of 10 young people were able to weatherize over 50 homes. Most importantly, they found that 40% of them had gas leaks. And this is not something that we had expected, but it's clearly something that was a consequence of the investigation into properly weatherizing a home. So for those individuals that we did that for, it was a godsend. It was something that not only does it reduce their energy bills, but we probably saved some lives that we didn't even realize that we were going to do that with. And then finally, I'll tell you that when you reach out, there are so many public-private partnerships and faith-based organizations out here that want to help. I would just encourage you to really seek those out. We have another wonderful program called World Changers. It's a faith-based group, and they have brought in, and of course, we're the capital city, they brought in, this summer they're going to bring in 220 young people, high school students, college students, and they are going to do the improvements to the exterior of these homes. They're going to be doing 33 homes, making the lives of these senior citizens so much, much better. We just announced this program. It's a great, great program. But that's the kind, and it's a faith-based organization. And they come from Mississippi, from Louisiana, from Alabama, from all over the country to come in here for 6 weeks and take care of exterior home improvements on these houses, again, of people on fixed incomes and limited incomes. I tell you that just to let you know that that's our role now as local officials, is to reach out and to do more than just what is expected. One of the benefits of being in this Municipal League, and I want to thank Don Zimmerman and our wonderful staff for what they do, but they made sure that all of us as member cities are members of the National League of Cities. And a lot of the things that we do here are not ideas that I or anyone else in the city created. They're things that we found out about by going to National League of Cities meetings and learning from other people. And so I want you to know that as a member of this league, you're also a member of the National League of Cities, and you're going to hear from our President and Chief Executive Officer in just a minute about the National League of Cities. But I would encourage you to reach out and to look at that website, because there's a world of information there to help you. When I talked about young people, I want you to know there's a tremendous department in the National League of Cities called Youth Education and Families. We look to there for a youth master plan toolkit. It tells you how to work through your community to organize and to get people together. It's free. It's something you can pull off the internet. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to use those skills and tools and services, the research and education that they have provided to help us do a much better job as public servants. So I would encourage you to look at that. And certainly, we got a convention coming up, a city summit, if you will, coming up in the fall. And I hope that many of you will decide to attend, because I promise you, when you come back, it'll be a tremendous learning experience. It'll be one where you can take the things that you've learned and put them to work in your role as public officials. So thank you very much for being here. I hope you have a great time. Spend all your per diem. And I'll see you later on this afternoon. Thank you.
This next individual, Mr. Clarence Anthony, was appointed Executive Director of the National League of Cities in 2013. As Executive Director of National League of Cities, Mr. Anthony leads the oldest and largest organization of municipal officials in the United States, representing more than 1,600 cities and towns, as well as 49 state municipal leagues that are members of the NLC. Mr. Anthony knows cities because he is one of us. And believe me, he is one of us because he has a passion. I've seen this guy and works in D.C., and anytime I've attended the National League of Cities, Clarence has the passion for cities. Prior to his appointment as Executive Director, he served as Mayor of South Bay, Florida for 24 years. He is a past president of both the Florida League of Cities and the National League of Cities. Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for attending our 82nd convention. We look forward to hearing from you. Clarence Anthony.
Out of the night that covers us, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever God may be for a municipal official's unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, we have winced and cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, our head has been bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears loomed the horror of the shade, but yet the minutes of the years find and shall find us unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. We are the master of our community's fate. We are the captain of our community's soul. Good morning, Arkansas. How y'all doing? Y'all awake yet? Well, I can tell you I'm so pumped up being here, especially when I got off of that airplane yesterday and that beautiful 100-degree weather curled my hair and everything else. I was like, oh my God, am I back in Florida? But no, it has been such a great time to be here, and it's such an honor to be here and to share a few things with you as it relates to the National League of Cities and the partnership that we have with the Arkansas Municipal League. Mr. President, thank you so much for that introduction, and it's just, again, the hospitality that I received last night was wonderful. You know, as we look at where we are, I want to talk a little bit about standing tall for cities. And I was inspired last night at the dinner by the fact that 50 years of Don Zimmerman's service, when you think about him, you think about first Don Zimmerman, but you also think about standing tall. And what an honor. Let's give him a hand for that. But when you think about standing tall for cities, you know, sometimes, you know, when we go and meet with the governor or senators or state reps or congressional members, we oftentimes go there just armed with great information, ready to fight for cities. And as soon as we walk in the door and we meet the governor or the congressional member, the first thing we do is pull out our iPhones or our cameras, and we go into this, oh my God, I want a picture with you. And I think that's okay. We get the picture. We do that part of it, but we then start standing tall for cities. You were elected by citizens in your city. They did not elect folks that were going to go into meetings or to go to conferences and just say, I am mayor, I'm alderman, I'm a council member. They elected people that they felt was going to stand tall for them on their behalf, no matter where they were no matter what room they walked in. And I want today, if nothing else, to leave you as you go through this conference with the notion that our citizens in our cities deserve municipal officials that will stand tall for them. Now, as this morning was amazing as the color guard was laying the American flag and the Star-Spangled Banner was being sang. Somehow that touched me this morning, because all over America we're having challenges. We're having issues with how we deal and manage with each other. We all woke up last Sunday morning, with this horrific story about how a terrorist in America killed innocent people, innocent young people. We need to stand tall and stand with the city of Orlando and stand with the mayor and the first responders. We need to make sure that in Arkansas that we respect all citizens, no matter who they are and where they come from, and recognize the diversity that is being a part of this state, that the growing population of diversity in Arkansas, especially the Latino population, should be one that is embraced and that is engaged and a major part of your culture, our culture. And I was so moved by achieving respect and understanding in the municipal workplace. This document that your municipal league provides you as a tool to how do you lead, how do you embrace a diverse community as our nation changes, as your city changes. 123% increase in diversity in terms of the Latino population in Arkansas. What does that mean for us? It means that we lead all the citizens that live in our cities, not just those that were born in our neighborhood. So I challenge us to stand tall for all the citizens that are in our cities and make sure that we carry on the legacy of Don Zimmerman and others who've worked at the Arkansas Municipal League on behalf of all of us. Now, at the National League of Cities, we are moving. And we are honored to have a second vice president from Arkansas, Mayor Stodola. And he has really jumped in and made sure that the issues and ideas from Little Rock as well as other cities in Arkansas is recognized. And I hope that as he moves up to become president of the National League of Cities, not only will you support him here, but I hope that you will support him by attending the conferences, by getting more engaged in the committees, not only at the Arkansas Municipal League, but also on the national level. Because the ideas that we need to make our cities better, they're far beyond our own geographic area. So I encourage you to learn as much as you can here, but look at the National League of Cities as well. So, there is something going on in America that we all will participate in November, and some of you guys may not know it, but there is a presidential election going on. And it is huge. It's going to be a huge, that's Donald Trump joke, if y'all didn't get that. Uh-oh. I forgot, I'm in Arkansas, okay. But, you know, when you talk about standing tall, this is one thing that we must make sure we have a focus on. The reason why is this. When you look at the issues in America where 80% of the people live, it's in cities. And we're all looking at the television, and there's very little focus on city issues. Very little focus. And it doesn't matter who you support, you're Republican, Democrat. I don't get into that because the National League of Cities is not partisan. But when you get a chance to meet with presumptive nominees, whether it is Trump or Clinton, you need to demand that these issues that I want to briefly talk about, that they respond to them. First of all, the National League of Cities has created an initiative called Cities Lead. And Cities Lead is about getting up the platform of both the Republican and the Democratic Party to respond to the issues that are impacting cities. The first issue, and so that you'll remember it, it's PIE, public safety, infrastructure, and the economy. Bye-bye American Pie, all that kind of stuff. If that takes you take that to remember it. Some of you remember that song. I wasn't born yet, but it's PIE. The first is public safety. We all know that in our cities throughout America, cities lead, and cities will continue to lead on the issues of public safety. We need to make sure that as we look at this issue, there are cities in your state that are doing wonderful things and standing around the issues of public safety. You know, I talked about your Achieving Respect and Understanding that was produced by the Arkansas Municipal League. I got to tell you, there is a chapter in there that talks about how the community and the police and whether police should live in your communities. Those are all interesting things that you need to really read and talk with your city council and discuss it with your mayor and your staff, because those are thoughtful things that we need to have a dialogue about. But we also need to look at the fact that cities like Ferguson, cities like Baltimore, cities like Charleston, North Carolina, had great challenges around their police-community relations issue. But I got to tell you, there's a difference between every one of those cities. And what made the difference was leadership. The difference was leadership. You looked at Ferguson, total turmoil. Baltimore, total turmoil in the city. But if you looked at the mayor of Charleston and how he led his community through a very, very difficult time, that's what true leadership is. That's how you embrace the community and engage the public safety community in your area. There are models, and we have to make sure that we get the funding that we need from the federal government, we get the partnership that we need from the state and federal government, and we get the support of our staff and our community. Public safety, if it's not handled right, and if the presidential candidates don't recognize it, we have missed an opportunity. Let's stand tall and make sure that we get the issue of public safety discussed by the candidates. There's another issue that is similar to public safety, but it's an epidemic in American cities right now. And the epidemic is opioid and heroin use. You can turn on the television, you can read national and local newspapers, but the first thing I want you to do is to talk to your EMT and police department. We may not think that we have an epidemic in our cities and communities, but it is an epidemic. We're up 44% in terms of deaths by the use of overdose of heroin and opioids. Now, it's not happening right now. It's happening, but the epidemic is occurring in rural communities. It's occurring in rural and small communities. It's not just happening in Little Rock. It's not in Washington, D.C. It's in Maine. It's in the Midwest. The epidemic is impacting the white community at an alarming rate, faster than any other population. It's in the suburbs because prescription drugs are being provided and people are getting hooked. And they're finding it any way they can. So recognizing that that is an epidemic, Your National League of Cities created a joint task force chaired by Mayor Stodola, our second vice president, to give you tools and ideas of how do you deal with this epidemic. So you may say again, we don't have that happening in my city. I would ask you again to go back and start looking at data, not stories, but data about this epidemic. 44 people are dying every day. We've gotten so bad that we are giving our EMT as well as police a drug called Narcan that they can use if they run into someone who is overdosing. And they give them this shot and they shock them back into life. If that's not an epidemic in American cities, in America, I don't know what is. It doesn't take Prince dying to get us to deal with these issues. It shouldn't take that. It should take us standing up for our citizens, standing up with ideas, and bringing those solutions to our communities. So since 2000, we've had a 200% increase of deaths in the use of opioids and heroin. I don't want to startle you, but I want you to leave this conference prepared and knowing what the challenges are in American cities. Infrastructure. We've been very, very successful in the last couple of years dealing with the transportation part of infrastructure. And I can tell you that the Arkansas Municipal League was there, always there, meeting with your congressional members and your senators around this issue. We have, a couple of years ago, we had a $300 billion piece of legislation that included great development opportunities for cities of all sizes. So I ask that you go and have your staff to look up the FAST Act. We're now in the implementation stage of it, and we have to make sure that the money gets down to the small, medium-sized, and large cities. But for the first time, there's a special focus on small cities or regional partnerships. So we may not be able to solve the issue if we are 500 to 10,000 or 15,000 population. But just imagine you creating a regional approach to getting money, dealing with federal issues. That is the way that we have to do this with this FAST Act. Now, the $300 billion has been passed, but that's just the first step. We need to make sure that the implementation is correct, and we're working with your leagues and leagues all over America to make sure that we are addressing that issue. But we all know about this crisis in America that Flint has brought to our attention. But you know, it's just not Flint. We got cities all over America that's struggling with funding improvements to our infrastructure. This is our new fight: water, wastewater, environmental sustainability. This is our next fight. And you need to create that strong relationship with Region 6 EPA and making sure that not only are we elevating this issue, but we're fighting and standing to make sure that the water and the pipes and our wastewater systems and sewer systems are up to date. Because no kid should grow up in a community that does not have safe, sanitary, and quality water. We're in America. We are in America, the greatest country in the world. And I thank God every day for where we are and where I am and where I live. But when I see stories like this and the hand pointing, finger pointing, it's the federal government, it's the state government, it's the city, it doesn't matter. We need money in our local communities, and we need you to stand up again for cities, because we have passed support for federal funding for Flint. We've supported that. But that's just one city. Let's do it for all the cities, over 500 cities here in Arkansas. Our third issue is the economy. Now, y'all know that anybody who runs for president or any other office and don't talk about the economy, man, you know you're not going to win because it's about how we live and the opportunities that we create for our citizens and for ourselves. The feeling that we have that we wake up every day and we say that I too can get a job. I mean, the governor talked about that last night. That great feeling that I am of value. And so we need to create an economy and stand tall for an economy that makes a person feel like they are of value, no matter what city they live in. Just imagine living in a city and you're unemployed and you're living poverty. And your kids basically have not been able to eat and to have nice clothes and to have a phone like the other kids. In a way, you may live in that city, but that's not you don't feel like that's home. Home is a place where you can have a place to drive your car up to and walk in and have a good dinner, talk to your kids, make sure your kids go to school. That's your place you call home. I mean, you can live in Little Rock, but if you're not participating, you're not going to call that place home. So we oftentimes look at the TV and we see people burning up places, and we say, I can't believe they're doing that to their home. It's not their home when you're not participating. So as you develop public policy, as you develop economic development initiatives, think about how do you create a place called home for all of your citizens. One of the ways that we know that we're going to work hard, and I keep saying the Arkansas Municipal League is leading, this issue of e-fairness, I'm telling you, your league, your congressional members, a few of them, your congressional members are working hard to make sure that we have e-fairness, that downtown retail has a playing field that is balanced with the internet. We're losing $23 billion a year on the e-fairness, lack of e-fairness. And right now, they've called it so many names, but it's called the Remote Transaction Parity Act. But the fact is, imagine if you had those resources that you can put more police on the roads, improve the roads, that you'd be able to make sure that more parks are developed for your citizens. This is a big issue. And I want to tell you, we work with Congressman Steve Womack. If y'all see him, I know he represents the 3rd District. If y'all see him, you should just, don't shake his hand, give him a hug. This is our champion. And Don and his team, when they come to town, your president has been wonderful in making sure that he knows he has the support. But we also want to thank Congressional Member Rick Crawford and Senator Boozman for their support as well. But you know, we got some work, and we want you to nudge Representative Hill, Representative Westerman, and Senator Cotton. These decisions aren't easy, so I know that they're challenged. They know that it's the right thing. But if you stand tall, take your photo, shake their hand, be nice, but then you need to go in. You know, you need to get in the game. You need to say, I'm standing tall for cities. And this is what cities need. And if you don't do that, they're going to say, well, they really didn't have the heart. They just talked to me about it. You got to go in the game and get in strong for your citizens. $23 billion. I can walk into one of the downtown stores, take a picture, and then go to the internet because I'm trying to avoid sales tax. That store has lost a sale and continues to lose sales. And then I try to avoid the internet tax. It's not fair. It is not fair. Those downtown stores deserve the same playing field as other internet. The economy on municipal bonds. There's always been a proposal to strip the tax exemption from municipal bonds. That is the tool that all of us use to be able to fund those water and wastewater facilities in our communities. I hope that you will, again, make sure that the President of the United States know that municipal officials will not stand for him proposing that we strip the tax exemption from the municipal bonds. That is the tool, whether it's TIFs, economic development, again, the governor talked about incentives. You need this tool in order to do the things that you need to provide services to your citizens. So I hope that you will recognize this as a major issue. Now, I say stand tall. The National League of Cities is standing tall for you with Don Zimmerman and other 49 state leagues and members all over America. We're fighting, but I can tell you, it makes a difference when we are fighting, and I can look behind me when I meet with Congressman Womack, and there is Don standing 10 feet tall in my eyes. So, but it makes a difference when you guys are in Washington. It makes a difference when you are here in Little Rock. It can't be just the AML staff going in there. It may take you driving 3 or 4 hours to have that meeting on the Hill here, but it's going to be worth it at the end because your citizens will benefit. We are in your organization. We represent 19,000 cities. I remember when I was mayor, I got elected to office. And I can tell you, the easy part was getting elected. The difficult part was governing. The easy part is getting elected. The difficult part is governing. What do I mean about that? I mean that I had a master's degree and I thought I knew everything about local government. I got elected on a mandate of 33 votes the first time I ran. That was a mandate, right? Only one vote makes a difference. Either way, you win. But after my first meeting, the city manager came in and said, here's the budget. You need to set the ad valorem tax rate, rollback rate. We need to talk about TIFs, what kind of incentives. And I'm sitting there like, yo, I ran for office just to get the drugs off the street. I have no idea what you're talking about. And that's where my municipal league came in. And that's when I got involved. And that's when I knew that it was my passion to get involved in municipal association at the state and national level. And my city, it made such a major difference in the ideas and the money and the relationships that I created throughout America. I can pick up the phone even right now, people in this state that I've worked with when I was an elected, and say, hey, I need this, I need that. I'm coming to town. Oh, you can stay at my house. That's what the municipal leagues mean. So we want you to get involved. We want you to stay involved. And there are some great resources. One of the new resources is NLC grant access. Go to our website, and if you are a member city of the National League of Cities, there's a listing of grants that you should encourage your staff to research and determine whether or not you qualify. So we got a few here related specifically to Arkansas, the Arkansas Humanities Public Program grants, the African American Heritage Grant. There are so many others here, Arts on the Tour grant opportunity, collaborative project support. So I'm just throwing out a few. Take advantage of that. That's why we are here, to make sure. And then finally, for me, Mayor Stodola talked about it, and I'm going to really try to do a little begging here. If you really like him, Mayor Stodola, as Little Rock, you'll come to the conference in Pittsburgh. He is our second VP, and he's your mayor in Arkansas. And I think, Don, he is the first person that will become president of the National League of Cities from the state of Arkansas. So I think that is wonderful. So, it's my time to stand. I've stood here, but I got to tell you, it's all of our time to stand tall for cities. They deserve that. Our citizens deserve that. They deserve the passion and leadership that is in this room. And if you don't have it, then you have really lost an opportunity to share and to learn and to get inspired at this conference. But you know, I appreciate every precious moment that I have on this earth. And I have very little patience with people that are not inspired about that opportunity to make a difference. So whatever you need to do, go for a walk in your community, in an area that you don't normally walk, and just see the faces of the people and what they need. Stop by a grocery store and just look at folks determining whether or not they have milk or they just have water. Drive by a community and you see a dilapidated house and you see folks sitting on the porch. Or you can look at some of the homeless in your community, the veterans that are homeless. If that does not move you and inspire you to stand tall for the cities of Arkansas, I just don't know. But I will tell you, AML and the National League of Cities, we're standing tall for cities. We're standing tall for you. And I've been so honored to be here today. Thank you all so much, and have a great conference.